for a short period.
I saw that. And I usually put it,
Store or like a, you know,
Well, no, it's actually in Derby Street Shops. It's a big shopping center.
but not like inside of them, like a mall.
No, but actually, I think I have a picture of it from where Tommy sent me this.
Oh. Okay. Is he out for the holiday or just not able to do it tonight?
Oh.
his wife is getting an award at school.
So here's the,
Wow.
Pretty sure he said school, which I thought was kind of odd, but I think she's a nurse.
Is she a school nurse? Or is she just volunteered?
find a blown up version of one.
I thought she was in a hospital. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I think that's like 5. Definitely 4.
She needs an award for that.
No.
You can text that to me. I'll look at it.
No, fortunately.
Forward it to you, so.
Well, maybe you have a chance to go then, right?
And one of my neighbors works for Apple.
They wouldn't pay for me to go. It's a nice thought, though.
I'd have been outnumbered, wouldn't have been pretty.
All right, well, I think we can go ahead and start. And we'll let Tom join when he's available. So I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll go ahead and get right into our agenda. The first of which is the lease negotiating and real estate committee. So we can discuss the blue collar negotiations in executive session, if that's what you think is best, Mike.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So along with the parking lot.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and move next to rezoning. Cindy, I don't know if you want to touch on that.
Really nothing more to report. We're still waiting for the engineer to get back to us with the survey work. So
Gotcha.
as soon as that's done, then we can create the draft ordinance.
Okay. I'm guessing that maybe pushes into not the next meeting, but into January. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions on the rezoning? All right. Go ahead and move right down to the Finance and Operations Committee, the transfer of assets scheduled for January 1.
So I had reached out to Frank Mincarelli right after our meeting in October, saying, hey, we'd like to discuss this. Could you get these redrafted? The redraft showed up on Monday. I have not looked at them, to be honest with you. I don't think some of the others have looked at them as well. So we really need to push this to our December agenda.
Okay.
So in the meantime, between the meetings, definitely get your drafts out so that you can see what's happening.
Do you think it makes sense to have another committee meeting to review it? Or
Like to, we can do that.
I would take your recommendation on that, whether or not you think it's something that we need to.
We haven't changed any direction.
Okay.
He did have a question about assets. If the authority was planning on holding, the township would hold the building and the land asset, and then all the equipment would go to the authority, which I think is how the authority was interested in doing this. Because when you, like Joe said, when the piece of equipment needs repaired, you're gonna have the funds to make that repair as opposed to the township.
And we're making the payments to the township on them anyway.
Right.
Yeah, on the new equipment.
Yeah.
Even the old.
Oh, the old equipment. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, new and old would go to, and I'll clarify that with him, Frank. But other than that, the committee, this is what the committee had discussed when they met.
And just correct, that doesn't cause any issue with the old equipment as far as transferring it from one entity to another entity. That wouldn't cause any issues on anything.
There's well, the only title involved would be the truck
Yeah,
that Joe Muhal has.
we've already discussed this with our auditors
Okay.
and basically, this whole transaction of kickstarting the authority as an operating authority. From the accounting side, we know how to handle it and we're good to go as far as what entries need to be made.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the transfer of assets? All right,
I realize I'm public and it's not. I'm not sure I understand what you're transferring and why you're transferring. I'm just looking for more information on that.
yeah, I can quickly touch on that. So right now, everything's owned by the township. We as a rec authority board have no holdings, have no employees, have nothing except for our opinion to the township board of supervisors, which they can or cannot take as a directive. Our hope is that we can continue to operate under the township as a operating authority where we would help with golf course operations and get more hands-on into the operations at the golf course. We can't necessarily do that if nothing is really under our name or in, like, we're not paying any of the bills. We're not doing any of the finance side of any of the golf course. That's still primarily handled by the township. Would you add anything onto that, Joe or Cindy?
No, I think you covered it unless you have a follow-up question.
Just equipment.
Point, these two buildings were power. And it worked out quite well. Was to provide more income.
But that's still true.
Well, that's why we're transferring the assets, because we are making money now. And we need some of those other assets to control everything, because the money's going in there and we're going to use the money that we're making to pay off.
All
and repair
revenues in the
and
new year will go to the authority bank account. So the golf revenues, the blue collar lease payments, all that stuff will become authority transactions. But by the same token, all the expenses to operate the golf course and everything else is also on the authority. The township will not have a golf fund in 2023.
So we build our own balance sheet by doing this, which gives us a budget for things on the golf course, i.e. cart paths or new carts or, we bought new equipment for golf course maintenance.
the expenses of golf course are of the revenue.
Correct.
Basically, they'll become an operating authority and run that whole complex. The township will still own the land and the buildings. And then the authority will be up and running. If there was ever a day where they would get dissolved, everything would revert back to the township.
So we'll move on to our action items, which was the 2023 budget review and approval.
So as we had discussed at the last meeting, there is no requirement under the Municipalities Authorities Act to advertise or formally create a budget. But since you are taking over the assets expenditures, it would behoove us to create a budget so that you have something to follow. And as we explained last meeting, this is essentially the golf fund in the township account moved to the rec authority's purview. What is added is compensation for the employees. So all the employee benefits are still with the township, but the rec authority is covering the cost of those because the rec authority is not going to have technically employees. They are still employees of the township with reimbursement. Now, at our last meeting, we did have discussions about the capital expenditures, the parking lot. And I think that was the only thing in the parking lot was on the capital. And whether we should pave it or whether we should stone it. And I believe Mike can probably share that stoning seems to be the more economical approach at this point.
But also gives us more flexibility long-term if there is some change to and what we're doing out front, I think gives us the most flexibility for sure.
Right.
The other item was, I think, just how we were gonna treat that amount of money that's out there for capital expenditures, that we were just gonna put it into a capital reserve fund as part of the budget.
So just, I mean, maybe to recap for the audience, it's estimated that the rec authority will start the year with $371,000. We know for a fact that that's going to be higher at the end of the year. And your expenditures, let's see, their total expenditures were just over $1 million. No, I'm sorry. I do budgets badly. The revenues for next year are projected at just over $1 million. And then the expenditures are projected for next year at. Getting to the bottom
Actually,
here.
Cindy,
Thank you.
if you don't mind.
No, I don't. And that's not what's done whatsoever.
Okay. So the projected revenues for 2023 total 1,173,000. That includes all the golf income as well as the blue collar lease arrangement. So the revenues are at 1,173,000. On the expense side, it's almost an identical number. We're projecting to spend 1,174,000. So it's a balanced budget, if you will, within a couple $100. We tend to budget the expenses on a worst case scenario, and the revenues, we go more conservative so that we're happy in the end when we beat those numbers. So it is a good budget. The authority will start, as Cindy said, with 371,000 projected in the account. After running through the budget, there will be a loan payment for the 5 or 4-year lease purchase arrangement for the new golf carts and other equipment we got for the maintenance department. That's roughly 143,000. That'll get paid back to the township. So with that payment coming off, we're still showing the authority being in the black to the tune of 228,000 at the end of the year. And again, the budget's just a guide. We hope the performance comes out better.
Mhm. But again, Cindy, we're not sending this to the Board of Supervisors for approvals.
It is not, no, this is your budget. This is not going to the Board of Supervisors.
So we don't need for any call to action for us to approve it in our meeting.
I would approve your budget for 2023. That kind of sets the standard.
But we can't do that until we've had executive session to discuss the parking lot. Because that's part of the 2023 budget.
I think we need to talk about that. And did we have in there, and I apologize for not having it in front of me, but I think Joe was asking for additional equipment. He had a list
Was.
and necessary.
That is not in there.
I don't think we
It's
put that
not
in
in
there
the
yet.
budget, right? So we need
Because it
to,
wouldn't actually be for 2023 either. It was-
probably not. If we order it, we probably wouldn't have to make a payment till 24, but if we don't, I guess, address that and at least give him the go ahead to order something, just pass it
Yeah.
down the line.
At the last meeting, I had asked him to give us a spreadsheet that shows what equipment he has, what the year is, what the condition is, and his projected replacement schedule. He hasn't done that yet. He did give us a priority list of 4 items, which I think he explained to you at the last meeting, the sprayer being the number 1, and provided us with a secondary quote, which I don't know how that compares to the first one. That came in, I think, Monday.
It's also going to get some certainty around whether or not we can order the equipment. We don't need to pay it, but there's no guarantee of pricing. So he was going to verify that with the salesperson.
And I don't know that he has gotten that confirmation yet.
And confirm that the resale market doesn't really exist for equipment.
Right.
And just like a municipality, the authority can approve a budget. And then during the course of the year, if there needs to be a supplemental appropriation for any item, that can be an agenda item up for consideration.
No, I was gonna say, I think we've already, in this last equipment purchase that was made at the golf course, that I don't know, we taken delivery of all that at this point? I thought we accelerated some of the equipment purchases for that also. So we're out there. I think we've already, as a group, I think we've already provided support and funding for significant amount of equipment. It may not be exactly what he wants, but I think until we get some of the feedback back from him, we should maybe hold off on further consideration of adding anything to the budget. And to Joe's point, if we need to open the budget, we can, if things look good, and we're hoping that they will. And if there's a dire need for some additional equipment.
I think we all agreed with your points there, that we spent, over close to $100,000 on equipment. So I think we all agree with you there. I think the one thing to, at least on Joe's point, was there was no CapEx spending at the golf course for any of the equipment for an extended period of time going back because of the amount of red that the golf course was in. So I think for our future considerations, that eventually some of that stuff is going to need to be replaced. But he said that they continue to, I think he had a maintenance budget of close to $30,000 a year. So the hope is that eventually that would go down as some of these pieces of equipment will be repurchased, but at a higher cost. But I agree with, and I think most of us agree with the fact that we've already spent a lot last year. So to kind of build that in for next year, even 2024, might be getting out ahead of ourselves as far as expenses go, especially with some of the other stuff that we have to discuss already. So I don't know where we're at as far as being able to approve the budget or not without discussing the parking lot that we would have to do in executive session.
Well, I think we could, Ryan, because I think we agreed, or at least discussed that there'd be that amount of money that was sitting out there, but it would not be earmarked specifically for the parking lot or anything else, that it would be just go into CapEx fund. It'd be our capital reserve. And then we can vote to spend those dollars, accordingly.
And that was the $80,000 that we had earmarked for capital expenditures?
No, it's
or-
180,000.
Oh, 180,000. That's a big miss on my, okay. Okay. So I guess we can discuss how we would use that CapEx fund in our executive session, but does anybody have any other questions that they want to ask about the budget, or any other points they want to make before we call to a vote to approve? Okay. I would call for a motion to approve the 2023 budget as discussed in the last meeting and tonight.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor of approving the 2023 budget, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'm sorry, who was the second? Thanks.
2023 budget is approved. Is Joe on the line?
He is not.
Okay.
And neither is Jim, but I was told that John would be online, but he is not.
So I'll move right through old business then. The maintenance equipment replacement schedule, we are going to have to skip. We don't have Joe on the line. Goals, objectives for the golf course, unless anyone has any comment to add there, I would say we can also move that into executive session with kind of what our future plans are.
That probably would not be an appropriate executive session discussion.
Well, I mean, as far as the blue collar and the
Gotcha.
parking lot, I don't think we have any other irons in the fire to discuss on goals and objectives, unless somebody has something that they want to bring up. Okay. And then the golf operations update, that would be Jim.
That
who's
would be
not-
Jim's report, right? I just wanted to add a little bit that I have in the bottom there about building maintenance. The underneath the court, cart room is the sewer lines. And they are a patchwork of problems waiting to happen. In fact, one did happen. There was a clog and Joe Bosnoff, our maintenance person at the township, had to go out on a weekend to correct the problem. So rather than wait until we have a serious emergency with the restaurant and to actually move ahead and get this work done ahead of time. So they're going to do it in 2 phases. The first phase is about $13,000. That's most of the patched area. The second phase would be more of a straight run and less patched area. So it'd be easier to get accomplished, so probably less money. But it's something that's probably overdue and needs to happen. They're also going to do a 4-inch line as opposed to I think it's a 3 now. So things should flow.
This is an
better.
outright replacement versus running a liner into the pipe, do you know?
Yes, it's been
Okay.
patched too many times to do that.
Is that causing any disruptions for the restaurant or for the golf course?
The last one could have, yes. It was actually pouring water out right where the electrical panel is.
Okay.
So it was kind of,
But as far, I think, were you asking as far as the repairs, like, does that?
Yeah,
shut
like, are
down?
they doing?
they are
it?
going to be doing it on a Monday when they're closed.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
And that's already in the
Question,
works. We
are
don't
the
have to-
township force is gonna do this, or are we gonna get a contractor to do it?
Rank is doing it,
Okay.
So it's already in the works. We don't have to
correct.
give approval. All right.
Do they have a timeline for that?
I don't know. We weren't going to wait long because things happen, yes.
Yeah, okay,
But no, I'm not sure about the timeline, no.
okay.
Is the money in the budget?
It's a maintenance item. It needs to be done.
Well,
It's
I-
not
yeah,
necessarily,
I don't doubt that. I'm just saying,
it's not necessarily in the budget as a expenditure, a planned expenditure. It's something that came up. It's going to come out of your reserve.
Is that
Capital
our
reserve.
expense?
Pardon?
That's our expense?
Well, right now the monies are still in
It's in the golf fund, right?
golf fund. It's a building
Got
expense.
Smack that number that, so.
So, I mean, that's another question to be raised, is the building and land is the township's. The building, this is a building expense, but but there are no revenues being held by the township to cover those costs. So those costs are going to go to the rec authority. Unless you have a conversation with the board of supervisors and something differently is arranged.
The lines themselves are underneath the actual building footprint.
I'm sorry,
They're actually inside the building footprint, the sewer lines.
they're hanging from the cart barn ceiling, yes.
Okay.
What expense would the township cover now that I mean, because I think we talked about like having a new roof on the building would be a authority expense.
It would, the way I'm looking at it would be an authority expense. Because we're not generating any revenue, nor are we banking any revenue towards maintenance of that building, just like the Hempfield Recreation Commission building. We don't take care of any of that building or land over there,
But we own it.
but we own it. So, I mean, that might be a conversation for Frank, and do we in fact keep those costs, because there's no monies to cover those expenditures when they occur.
Mhm. Okay. Anybody else have any questions on the building maintenance? I guess we can't really ask about the golf operations without Jim. All right, I'll move down to new business. Does anybody have anything for new business? All right, I will move to minutes of the previous meeting on October 26th. Did anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes of the previous meeting? I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes from October 26th, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. I will now open it up for any public comment.
I'm just gonna ask one more time. Has anybody figured out why we can't have golf carts in the parking lot? When every other golf course in the county and every other golf course that I've been to, and I've been to a lot of them, you're allowed to take your golf cart to the car to get your clubs. And nobody has any problems with it. And I don't know of any accidents that have taken place. And when I asked the question earlier when the change was made, whether this relieved us of any great liability, that it reduced the insurance cost on the golf course, and I was told no. So if the insurance company doesn't think it's a liability, golf carts in the parking lot. Why did we make that rule? Because you have a lot of older people, myself included, who I can't carry my golf bag. And there's a lot of other people who are having difficulty doing that. Yes, you put those lovely little signs out and the bag drop, but you still have to carry the bag out of the car and to bag drop or around the bag drop to get it to the cart. And it's still. And you are going to lose some of the older players who just aren't going to do that.
The guidance that we've received from Jim has been the same that you have heard already in one of these meetings, and it was that they have had several near miss accidents in the parking lot. So it was his thought to eliminate that altogether as being an issue potentially looming that has yet to happen, but that he wanted to eliminate the risk of that happening for the players that coming to Four Seasons. And that's been the update that we've gotten from him. And there's been no other comments from Jim on why that was the case.
The golf cart or the driver of the golf cart.
Could be, but it doesn't stop that person from suing the person who owns that property. So no matter what, costs can still be incurred, even though we're not liable.
You know of where the golf course has been sued for a golf cart accident in the parking lot.
In Pennsylvania? I know of a handful. Yeah.
Stop any of the other golf courses from allowing the golf course in the park.
I think they try. I mean, some people bend the rules, but if you go up to Hershey Country Club, you're not really supposed to be taking the carts out there. And they have monitors on there that stop you from doing that. So I think, you know, again, we all agree and disagree with certain points there. I think right now with the way the parking is set up and until we figure out a better solution to that, this was the interim solution that Jim came up with to keep things safe and organized, and we're going to go with that that decision for now.
Let me also ask, when the last meeting that I was here, I heard a lot of comments from the public about keeping the corner property for recreational purposes. And apparently that was disregarded, and now you're going to go ahead with the zoning anyway. Maybe something else.
Yeah, so the reason why we're rezoning is right now it's zoned a specific way, and we're looking at opening up our options. We don't have necessarily a person that we're looking to lease that land to. We don't have anybody, we don't have any, I mean, we have nothing but ideas. It's a blank slate right now as far as how we want to utilize that property. However, zoned now limits our options to only a few things, and those things are only able to be funded by either the authority or by the township, as opposed to going to commercial zoning or whatever. I forget the business use zoning, which opens that up to other third parties who might be able to put in the infrastructure, whereas we right now don't have the funds or the ability to do that.
And the rezoning also still includes recreational uses. Right.
My understanding is when you open it up, there's a hard line to being able to say no when somebody comes up with a plan.
We say yes, and then we have to present that to the Board of Supervisors for them to say yes.
So right now we're looking at the land is all one piece, right? So we can't lease anything out because there's not a boundary. So we're looking to create a boundary. And doing that is also part of the rezoning, which still allows us to do anything or nothing. But it allows us the opportunity. And not one of us has agreed to put something there. But we have to go in steps to get there. So like, nobody's going to talk to us where we can't negotiate with anybody until we have a footprint for them to look at. So it's part of just the process of getting to an end solution, whether it's nothing or something.
We have we have the ability to approve or not approve any of the, third parties that would come up with an idea. We don't have to take anything that is presented to us because of some legal rule. Any other public comment? Well, thank you for speaking. All right, I will now ask that we move into executive session to decide or to discuss the items at the top of our agenda. So thank you all for coming.
As a point of clarification, we're going into executive session and then not returning. So we can adjourn the meeting then, right?
Now or at the end of executive session?
At the end of executive.
Okay. So I'd ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting and move into executive session.
So moved.
Good, second.
All right, all in favor of adjournment, moving into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, we did.
Take any action. Anything decided in executive session.
Well, there's really nothing. This is original stuff. So we can take it up in December.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know what, like I tried to indicate the other day. Kind of timeline they're on. I thought they were looking at spring, maybe.
They are, definitely. They want to get going, but I just got the comments from Frank on the police.
Right.
I agree, but I wouldn't say that out. I wouldn't say that out loud, so.
So maybe comments I sent
I
in
was also gonna
today,
say, I have a 3-pound dog.
Red.
Like,
and there's
when I'm
still
done with mine, I can give it to you.
The other thing is we also need to create a.
I
police
bought that
line
at kind of
for the
soon because I
land.
walk so much now.
All that's still
Yeah, so-
work in progress.
We need the